Yes. Another edition of the Two Deep NFL podcast. Thank you for joining us. Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager, Sumer Sports. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Talking some NFL football. Patrick Mahomes gets a new deal. Did that close the window for the Kansas City Chiefs? How much easier does it make it for the rest of the NFL to maybe squeeze their way into the championship picture? We'll talk about that. Nick Chubb is done for the year. Saquon Barkley's out for a few weeks. Two of the premium guys, two of the premium running backs, and two of the guys that were up front in the running back discussion this offseason. What's it mean for running backs and their contracts now? Cincinnati Bengals are 0-2, and Joe Burrow's calf is hurting. Are they done? Baker Mayfield is 2-0 with the Bucs. Really? I'm serious. They're 2-0. Is this for real? 0-2 yet again for the Chargers. Are the Bolts already cooked? Is Brandon Staley on his way out? Anyone think Bill Belichick is done? I do. 2 weeks in, what teams are actually good enough to win it all? We will talk about that. Plus the NFL, if we've got time, claims the NFLPA told running backs to exaggerate injuries. Kind of interesting in the wake of the injuries we saw this past weekend. And what are we all looking for in week number 3? We break it down right now on the Two Deep NFL podcast.
You're listening to the Two Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. Two Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro was the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Two Deep is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Two Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And good evening and welcome. If you're catching us via the podcast, thank you very much for joining us. Remember, you can be a part of the conversation. We stream live Tuesday nights, normally 8 or 9 p.m. Tonight, 9 p.m. Central on a Tuesday night. You can be a part of the conversation. A lot of folks already in the chat room. Thanks for joining us. We'll get to many of your comments as we can. We're proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. If your business has any issues with a parking lot, they've been solving them since 1994. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. New contract, Jeff, for Patrick Mahomes. He gets even more expensive. There are some big cap numbers looming for Patrick Mahomes on down the road. This year, a cap number of 37, then 57, 60, 63 $63 million against the cap. How much does this open the door for the rest of the league to try to make some inroads on the Chiefs?
I don't correlate the two. I mean, I feel like this is something the Chiefs had to do to get him up to speed with every other quarterback who's getting in that $50 to $55 million range. I think all the teams that are really good have the same problem. They have a quarterback who's making a lot of money. There isn't a team out there right now. I know Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are still working out through their rookie deal, so they're still in a different category. But both those teams have a lot of money they put into other players and have to make some big decisions about, key players moving forward. So I put them in the same category. So it's really, to me, a fairly even playing field when it comes to finances. The bigger question is, can they go out and find the kind of players who become stars for them? They've got a nice mix of solid players once you get past Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, and Patrick Mahomes. But they don't have any other stars outside of those three. And a big part of their success over the last 5 years has been having those difference makers. When you watch Tyreek Hill in Miami, you see what he means to Tua Tagovailoa. When you watch Chris Jones play in his first game, you see what he means to this defense. I mean, you already know what Mahomes is. So, yeah, they're going to have to really draft well. They're going to have to really develop players. Yeah, let's get back into power rankings. Let's go down that rabbit hole again. But from the previous podcast. But no, I think that he's a great player, got a great coach, but it's going to be tougher to get the kind of players or difference makers around him, which I think is also part of them being a great team.
Yeah. Eric, how much does this maybe help out the rest of the league to close the gap with how much he's going to cost?
It's something, but he's always a surplus. And I think he's already won the Super Bowl, making a significant fraction of the cap more than any other player in the history of the league. So, it's something. And I think Jeff's 100% right. Like, this front office has done an incredible job of getting really good complementary players in here. Nick Bolton, guys like L'Jarius Sneed, the whole offensive line, Tooney. I think you could put Tooney in a superstar kind of caliber, maybe. Obviously, Creed Humphrey, one of the best centers in football. But I do agree with Jeff that in the next kind of set of drafts, there's got to be kind of that alpha player that comes out. And I don't know if he's going to play defensive line like Chris Jones does or wide receiver like Tyreek Hill did. But, yeah, I mean, you can't – now the Patriots, when they got Rob Gronkowski to go with Brady, that took them from that 10-year drought into some more Super Bowls. And there was that kind of intermediate time when it was like Jabbar Gaffney and Rashae Caldwell. And it was like they're good enough to get to the conference championship game, but it's like when you're up against other teams, it's just really hard. So I agree with Jeff. Like, once Jones leaves and once Kelsey ages out, like the work that Brett Veach has done has been incredible. He's going to have to hit on, and it's funny because, Hill and Chris Jones were like the only good draft picks they had for like 2 or 3 drafts. And now that they're hitting on more picks, but the stars haven't been the hits. It's interesting, but yeah, I think that they're going to have to come up with a couple more superstars in the next few drafts to maintain this.
By the way, I just enjoyed this one too much to not highlight it again. Brad says, Pat is like a divorce. It's worth it.
I can't remember. I was listening to talk radio.
I have not been divorced. I am not planning on getting divorced. Yeah. But from friends I know who have been divorced, I have heard that comment being.
That's an old joke.
Like,
why is it so expensive?
Why is it so expensive? Because it's worth it. Yeah. Hopefully my wife's not listening to the show.
Yeah. Oh, no, that was great. That's a good laugh to have there. Listen, it is, the fact that the top quarterback is getting paid. I think part of what is to be said here is Patrick Mahomes does have a bit of an ego, right? Like, he has this long contract. I think the Chiefs were going to do this all along, but I think it's about 2 or 3 years before they thought they were going to have to do it. And I don't think that happened because Patrick Mahomes didn't say anything. I think it happened because he was maybe tired of hearing, even though I think it was completely wrong. And it's weak reporting when people talk about him not having the guaranteed money and stuff like that, because when you dig into it, you realize there's always 2 years rolling. He had a lot more guaranteed money than people realize, but always with the ability to push money forward and take a big chunk at the beginning. That's worth more money. But I think he got kind of tired of it. Like, he's been the team player all along, but I think he's like, okay, you all are done. This is the wave. And I think it also says that they don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to put up a number bigger than Joe Burrow's. That Joe Burrow was the one to go. And once he went, let's top that for the total dollars. We know where we're going. I think there was some ego involved in that. Jeff, you agree?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like all these guys sooner or later get to the place where they're going to have that mantle of being the top paid guy, and their agent's going to contort the numbers to fit the narrative they want to put out there. But, and we don't know, is Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, they're going to be in that category in 2 or 3 years? Is Caleb Williams going to be the next guy who gets crazy, numbers we can't even think about? They're all going to get paid in some level. But I agree that, and I think Patrick is obviously always mindful of messaging and team. But yeah, I think he certainly wants to get paid what he's worth. And I'm sure the people around him are telling him it's important for you to get paid what it's worth, just for the position. Someone in the last podcast made a comment about the union, pushing for this. I don't know how much pressure they put on him, but he's a union rep, and it is important for those numbers to keep going up. And the only thing I'll say about his previous contract, that as much as he wants to win, he took a lot less money than what Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson got when they signed. He got $63 million when he signed that deal. Joe Burrow got $146 million. Like Lamar Jackson got $135 million. I know the money is going to come at some point, but those are really, eye-catching numbers. Travis Kelce made a great point in a GQ or Vanity Fair article when he talked about seeing what Tyreek Hill got paid. And he's like, you know what? I like winning. That money looks pretty good too. I mean, these guys pay attention.
What do you mean he got $140 million? I mean, Joe Burrow got a $40 million signing bonus. Are you talking about?
I think from the numbers I saw, what he's guaranteed at signing is $146 million. So when he signs his deal, that's what he's going to get up front.
Yeah. But like the point of Patrick Mahomes' deal is that like he's basically uncuttable as you roll things forward.
Yeah.
So there's the practical guarantee. It does. I mean, he's
all
on
these guys are.
Yeah. He's on the contract he's on right now. I am intrigued by whether or not how much it does handcuff the Chiefs moving forward, how much it handcuffs the other teams. Who's the guy, right? Like, that you see is the next guy that'll push the number. Is it Trevor Lawrence, Eric? I mean, I think this is a statement that the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes don't think he's going to push the number. Who pushes that number up next?
Yeah, I mean, outside shot is Trevor Lawrence this offseason, right? Because year 3, they're favored to win the AFC South, so you'll be playing in playoff games. If they win the AFC South, it'll be the first time since the turn of the millennium. Well, actually, the first time ever, but the first time they've won a division twice in a row, first time in the millennium. The Jags probably want to justify that pick with a contract, right? And so, especially Balky, who's kind of always like on the boundary of whether people think he's good or not. I think it's Lawrence for sure. And like you look at the rest of that draft, like Mac Jones, not going to be him. Obviously Wilson Fields, not going to be them. Love, not going to be him. So I do think it's one of those guys.
Look at what Kyler Murray got in Arizona with a far less resume. I mean, he really pushed it up too.
After 3 years too. I mean, like, it's I think it's Lawrence. If Lawrence doesn't wet himself this year, I think he gets a new contract.
Tua?
He could be there too.
Mm-hmm.
The way he's playing.
What do you think? Like, are you guys like Tua executes that offense very well? I think that he's regarded a step below those guys, but I mean, Jared Goff got a similar contract in LA as an offense executor and not an elite guy.
Well, Tua's going to say if Tua plays the level he's playing at, he's probably going to win the MVP. If he does what he's been doing for 17 games, he's getting that trophy. And he's going to look at Justin Herbert and say, you see what the Chargers gave him? I want that. Or I want more than that, because he doesn't have an MVP trophy. Like, that's how it works.
Yeah. And it should be pointed out the most money over 4 years is because there's no like last 2 years of the rookie deal that these other guys are getting where they're making like, $1.5 million base, and then they go to the 5th year at 20 and stair step up. That's where this is coming down. That's where the agents, and Jeff, you pointed this out, they want to make sure everyone knows, okay, this is where we're getting the most money over 4 years. That's why this is significant, is he's going to make, I think it's like 60 or 70 million more than Joe Burrow over these next 4 years, because Burrow has still got the back end of that rookie deal. So that's the point. And I think when these 4 years are up, there'll be a new Patrick Mahomes deal.
Yeah, that's the bigger question of what's that going to look like, because there's no new money coming into the contract, right? That's the important point to make here. They just took money on the back end, about $44 million, and put it into these 4 years to be able to justify, look, he's getting paid more than anybody else. However you want to define what the best highest paid quarterback is or highest paid player is. But 2027 will be a very interesting year to see what those numbers look like, because will he be willing to do the hometown discount again, or will he be saying, I need to be in the $70 million a year range?
Let's talk a little bit about the running back position, Eric. Nick Chubb done for the year. Barkley out for a few weeks, although some people are saying, oh, he's amazing healing powers. Watch out for how quick he could be back. What does this do for the running back position? These were two of the more vocal guys in that little running back conference. What does this do for them and their contracts?
I mean, I think it reinforces what the market dynamics are giving rise to, right? Which is like Barkley was fantastic as a rookie, fantastic last year, but the middle years were marred with injury, and you're not getting a ton of production out of him when he's hurt. Chubb, good for him. Chubb got a not top of market deal in 2021, but he got the 12 million APY, and he's lived up to it, I think, and more. I think he's the best rusher in football. But you see it. I mean, you see the downside with running backs, and it's just more apparent than other positions. And so I think that this just reinforces the market dynamics that have been there for a long time. And it's unfortunate because, these players, the whole CBA, it just screws running backs over. So it's just but the teams are not acting irrationally. I don't think they're acting in malice. They're just doing what the market is, forcing them to do in some ways. And we're seeing some of the reasons why.
Jeff, before he got hurt, Nick Chubb, 10 carries for 64 yards, averaging 6.4 yards per carry. Care to guess what Jordan Ford averaged per carry?
I believe it was around 7, wasn't it? 6. He rushed for 106 yards on 16 carries. That's what, over 7 yards a carry?
Yeah, 6.6. So the point being that game in and of itself explains why they don't get paid, right? This is it. He went out, and the guy who replaced him did better. I mean, I know everyone wanted to make this Robert Griffin III tweeted out something to the effect of look at this. This is ridiculous. Something's got to get done. They got to have another meeting. To do what? Stomp their foot? Go, ooh, I'm so mad. What? There's nothing they can do. This is what the position is. Either play another position or, I don't know, refuse to carry the ball as many times, ask to be more of a pass. There's nothing they can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think one option is one thing that the NFL's accusing the NFLPA of doing, which is saying fake injuries and try to use that as a negotiating ploy to create some leverage, which, there's probably a lot of people who think Jonathan Taylor is doing that with the Colts right now. The CBA, the union's got to do a better job of protecting its players. That's really where it comes back to these guys. And I agree that there's a danger in investing in running backs past a certain point, but there are teams and coaches who have said, we value this. Christian McCaffrey is one player who's had that happen for him. Derrick Henry is a player who's had that happen for him. Certainly Bijan Robinson is going to be that kind of player in Atlanta as long as Arthur Smith is the coach there. And so I feel badly for these guys because there's no mechanism to support those players who are real difference makers and to give them opportunities to make money. And I think when you look at McCaffrey or Barkley or Josh Jacobs or people like that, Bijan Robinson now, Adrian Peterson back in the day, those guys are a different class of running backs. I don't think Jerome Ford is going to go rush for 1,500 yards for the Browns this season. I think he had a nice night, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I think there's got to be better ways to give them an opportunity to make money.
Yeah,
but Jeff's broader point.
Real quick, the point isn't that Ford's better. The point
better than Nick Chubb?
No, the point is that he's 85-90% of what Chubb is, right? And there's a guy like that who comes around. You can constantly find somebody. Well, the numbers say it is. What do you think he's going to do?
One night.
I will bet that he goes for over 1,000 yards easy.
If he stays healthy all year,
yeah,
which again is part of
which is the point. If he gets hurt, that's the point. That's why you don't pay someone to sit on the IL.
The issue here is that the NFL Players Union is one of the weakest entities in all of sports. That is, and they got kind of screwed.
Why is that, Eric?
Well, okay, let's take a step backward. What if they were to go and try to amend the CBA right now and to make it better for running backs? They would have no, but that's the point, Petro. None of these players, the quarterbacks aren't going to concede so that running backs can get more. The wide receivers aren't going to concede. The issue with the NFL is that the rosters are huge, and everybody, both strikes in 82 and 87 were an abject failure. Now, progress happened later on, but in both cases, the strikes ended without improvements in the player, because there's 50 guys on a team and they all, after 4 weeks of hardship, they're all going to get back on the field and get paid, because then they don't get paid that much, the majority of them, all told. And so the union does a horrible job, in my opinion, of advocating for the players, educating the players, and making deals on behalf of them. And the last one wasn't as bad because it was the pandemic and they were trying to get theirs before kind of anything went down. And so I'll give them 2020. It hurts a lot, but I understand the 2011 CBA is one of the biggest mixed calculations and like lack of foresights, the rookie wage scale, all this stuff. The NFL CBA completely screwed their players. And it, to me, unless somebody has a come to Jesus moment and says, we're not playing unless we get better situations for our players, it's going to continue this way.
Right. But here's the problem. The NFLPA is like bitching about the NCAA. Oh, the NCAA who is the NCAA? It is the schools. The NCAA has no teeth because the schools don't really want the NCAA to do it. And they have stripped it of any power. They strip it of any of its money. The NFLPA, okay, guys, listen, Tim Grunhardt's told the story many times. They'd sit around with the meeting and like, okay, we need to start getting ready for a strike. It's coming up. We need to put some money in. Nope, not my check. I'm not putting any in. Hey, guys, look, let's talk healthcare long-term. We need to be putting some money in. Nope, not taking any money out of my check. Yeah, the NFLPA sucks because the players suck. That's who sucks. And I think people in our position do a disservice for not calling the players out, for giving the players this boogeyman of the NFLPA. And I'm not going to tell you all their leaders have done everything right or haven't. I don't know if they've had their hand in the cookie jar or that they got it all figured out or that they're great tacticians or great negotiators. But none of these, the vast majority will not give up anything now for the greater good of the long haul. Ever. And that's what kills them. The baseball players always would. The NBA players will, right? To your point, Eric, there is part of the problem is that there's the massive amount of players are on the league minimum part.
Yeah.
And
there's no middle class
for the vast majority of them. Yeah. For the vast, it's sort of like I was in student government when I was at UNL. It was like, everybody's like, I don't want to pay student fees to build a gym for the next class of people that come to the school. And it's like, if you're a sixth round pick in the NFL, I don't think you have much interest in a strike because you're basically striking so that the next schmuck drafted in the sixth round has better working conditions than you do. We don't, I'm not trying to be like a super politics guy here, but we don't do well with labor in this country. We don't understand labor well in this country. And as such, we do get this selfishness. I hate to put it out like that way, but that's the truth.
Yeah. And look, I think you raise a good point, Soren. If you look at, we live in Kansas City, you look at the Chiefs payroll, it's going to be 4 or 5 guys getting paid a lot of money and a whole bunch of guys getting paid $1 to $2 million a year. And so when those guys making that kind of money are fighting and clawing and scrapping to stay in this league every year to cobble together a career, to get to the 7-year mark, to get a pension, to do all these things they have to do. And it's very hard to get anybody with that kind of variation in earnings to support the kind of sacrifices you have to make. As much crap as Chris Jones took for what he did and being called an idiot and getting led around by his agents, you have to have players who are willing to do that kind of stuff to push the ball forward. Yeah. Let other guys feel. Le'Veon Bell, he lost all this money. Well, you got to have people who are willing to fight for that to show people how serious they are and how worthy it is to fight for those kind of things. The reason that the union in baseball is so strong is because Curt Flood got ran out of the game.
Yes.
You got to have a Curt Flood. And so until they get to that point, it's...
But even Chris Jones, in theory, should have 50 players times 32 teams behind him. And in reality, the NFL teams have 32 strong behind them, and it's 32 against 1. It's not 32 against 32 times 50. It's because Chris Jones is out on his own here in some ways because we don't have this strong sort of solidarity between the players. And so he does something like that, and in theory, it should wake people up. And in reality, most people are Chris kind of got screwed here.
Let me flip the argument. How do you make the running back more valuable? And I'll
I
give
think
you
they're doing it right now. I mean, the NFL is making the run game more valuable by playing all this 2 high and 3 high and all this kind of stuff. The running game has gotten more efficient, and honestly, Big Ben, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers probably going to retire soon. Like, the quarterback position has not been worse than it is right now in a long time. Like, I do think like the cyclical dynamics of the game are making the running game more valuable. You're going to have a hard time making the individual running back more valuable, just given the physicality and the difficulties associated there. And the fact is the majority of the great athletes in football still, young ages, are still playing running back. Because when you're a young kid, the easiest thing to do is turn around and hand it to the best kid on your team. And so it's still like that. Those kind of dynamics are going to be harder. So there is some hope, but I'm still selling it.
Yeah. If I'm a running back in college right now with any kind of pro potential, the minute I get my 1,200 yards, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdown season, I'm not playing another down of football in college. I'm going right into the draft. I'm opting out. I'm doing what kids were doing during the pandemic. And I'm trying to at least sell the fact that I've got less wear on my tires. Because that's what get used against these guys too. They get 300-400 carries in college for 3 years, and then they come in the league and they get another 200-300 carries for 4 or 5 years, and they're done. At the very least, you can sell your services that way. But yeah, they're never going to be able to raise the money unless there's some kind of pay incentive, pay package put together for, I said this weeks ago, that recognizes that people like McCaffrey or Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor, who putting up crazy numbers, deserve to get paid more than what the franchise numbers say.
I think this is the answer right here, and that is, I know Deebo Samuel doesn't like running the ball, but they're becoming more of a hybrid. Christian McCaffrey is the model. Now, he's battled his own set of injuries for a couple of years, but being more of a receiver, being as much a receiver as you are a runner, and limiting the carries, I think Andy Reid could, and I think he has even evolved, because he doesn't feed Pacheco the quantity of carries even he was Spencer Ware or Jamal Charles. He just use them and on to the next guy, next man up, next man up, next man up. Well, when you have a special one, you need to not be next man up, and you need to find a way to get him the ball in space and not running in traffic as much. If you're going to try to elongate his career. Let's move to the Bengals. Eric, where are you on Burrow's calf being a problem? They're already 0-2. How dangerous a ground are the Bengals on right now as far as this being a postseason type of year?
I think it's going to be hard for them. Burrow's a great quarterback. We talked about this in the last show. I think, though, his physical limitations are going to handle injuries worse than the Josh Allens and the Patrick Mahomeses of the world. And, this week they are basically a pick'em at home on Monday Night Football against the Rams, if you want to know whether or not Burrow is playing, which is no. So they're a coin flip away from being 0-3. So I think that we're going to be in a really tough spot if you're the Bengals. 0-2 in the division. The Bengals are probably looking to 2024.
They go on the road after that Rams game, Jeff, at Titans, at Cardinals. So not the toughest draws ever. At Titans is salty, but they're not good. They're not great by any stretch of the imagination. The Cardinals are up at Seahawks, at Niners, Bills. Those are the three after that. The schedule is not making it easy for them to get back up on their feet.
No, but just as with Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes, I don't bet against Joe Burrow. I think they have a good enough team that they can win against the Cardinals. They can win against the Rams. They can win against the Titans. They can hold serve until he's able to play. And I agree. People have said this already, that they should rest him and make sure that he's ready to go. Like, you don't have to force him back in these kind of games, because when they hit their stride, look, last year they were 0-2 and they won 12 of their last 14 games.
Yeah, but everybody wants to rest him for what? A week? Like, he did rest. He rested 4 weeks in between or more. What was it? 5? He didn't play in any of the preseason games. He got hurt very early in camp. So he didn't do anything theoretically for 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, but again, I don't know this kind of injury. I've never had this kind of injury, but what I understand is the kind of injury you just don't know how well you are until you're actually out there playing. So he's going to have to get to a place where he's able to run around and do certain things. And maybe he needs to be more cautious with it when he's playing again, I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow is going to be playing football for the Bengals at some point again this year. Now, the question is whether he's playing in a way that compromises himself or not. Last year, Dak Prescott went down for the Cowboys in week 1. A lot of people said they're done. The guy named Cooper Rush stepped out there and they went 4-1. I think the Bengals have the same kind of talent around them, the same level of ability. This is not a league where anybody's running away from anybody else. You still have Jamar Chase. You still have T. Higgins. You still have a good defense and a smart coach. And you have an easy schedule. Now, if you're talking about the Chiefs and the Bills and the Dolphins coming up right now, yeah, it's going to be rough. But the teams you just rattled off, all those teams can be beaten.
By the way, Jake Browning is the backup.
Yeah.
Anyone,
and again, who was Cooper Rush last year?
I agree. Anyone want to take
Cooper Rush at least went on the road and beat Minnesota on a Sunday night game the prior year. But you're right. Do we think that Zach Taylor's as good as Mike McCarthy?
Maybe.
What do you mean?
As far as
Mike McCarthy's the alpha there, right? Where that's why they were able to win all those games because Mike McCarthy's been there, done that. Won games with Matt Flynn at quarterback in Green Bay, got them to the playoffs when Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone. That's there are levels here.
Yeah.
Zach Taylor, when they lost Burrow to an ACL in 2020, you're talking about Ryan Finley. You're talking about I'm trying to think of the other guy, that one of the Allens, Brandon Allen, I think. That there weren't that many games won by that Bengals.
Yeah, but also no Jamar Chase, no Trey Hendrickson. No, their defense is much better now than what they've got enough talent to win games.
Yeah,
with a backup.
Lamar Jackson sure looked good against them though. Lamar Jackson crushed them on Sunday.
Well,
by the way, Jake Browning. Anyone want to tell me what college you played at?
Washington.
Good job. How about? I would tell you all of his transactions between 19 and 23, but
I can tell you as somebody
who squad, free agent, wave, practice squad, free agent, wave, practice squad activated, practice squad activated, practice squad, free agent, wave, practice squad activated, practice squad activated. He is all.
I can tell you as somebody who had a few Pac-12 after dark overs that needed Jake Browning, he sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also say this again, living in Kansas City. Remember Mahomes was down, they picked up Matt Moore.
Yeah.
And won games with him off the street.
Matt Moore is a legitimate NFL backup quarterback. Jake Browning is a wart on the ass of the NFL.
Matt Moore was coaching high school football.
You guys forget, but my first ever Chiefs game that I went to Arrowhead Stadium in 2011. The 0-7 Dolphins walked in here with Matt Moore and beat him 31-3. Matt Moore is legit. Jake Browning is like a wart on the ass of the NFL.
How about Mike White? You take him, the Jets.
I would take Mike White. Mike White's proven more than Jake Browning.
But if Jake Browning plays like Mike White, can this team win games?
They can barely win games with Burrow right now.
Oh, Soren, help me here.
It can be done. Yes, it can.
Thank you.
And he is, and I don't know what Browning is. Matt Moore did a good job of running what was asked of him, and he was probably better as an old fart who had been out of the game for a little while than he was when he was in the game, because when he was in the game, he thought he could make plays. When he came back, he's like, crap, I got to do what Andy tells me. And so he was probably better then at recognizing his limitations, to be honest with you, at that age. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield being 2-0 with the Bucs. You buying this as a legit story or just a nice little, George Seifert won his first game as the head coach of the Panthers, and they didn't win another one. This is 2 games. How much you buying in, Jeff, on Baker Mayfield and the Bucs?
Well, they beat the Cardinals and the Vikings, right? So one team has 7 turnovers in the first 2 games of the season. The other team is playing worse defense.
Bears.
Amazingly worse.
They beat
the Vikings have the turnovers. The Bears
grouping the Bears and the Cardinals together. No harm, no foul, though. By the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that they are. Look, I'm happy for Baker. I know it's easy guy to beat up on, but he is. He's playing well.
Yeah.
And even though he's playing against teams that aren't that good, he's delivering the goods. Now, if you had told me all that 3 of the 4 teams in the NFC South would be 2-0 at this point, I would not have believed it. But of those 3 teams, I feel like Atlanta's the most legit of the group. So while they are playing well, they do have some components that are good. Mike Evans is showing he can still play, and the defense still has some playmakers, but it feels like Atlanta has a more sustainable formula right now for who's going to win that division.
Baker Mayfield was the toast of the NFL, Eric, at one point. You know, he was leading the Browns into the playoffs, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was on all kinds of commercials. So the marketing world thought he was for real. I mean, can't you resurrect your career a little bit and, get some better talent around you? I mean, is Baker Mayfield that big a shock to be playing decent football right now?
Anybody that can go 30-30 with the Browns has a chance, right? Like there's, he's had his moments. Obviously, he was terrible last year, and the year that he hurt his shoulder, he wasn't very good. I want to point out though, and like we all kind of dismissed Todd Bowles last year because that team kind of like was bad and boring, and like they got killed in the playoffs and all that stuff. Todd Bowles took over. So last year, Brady retires. I was at your house, Petro, right? Brady retires. A month later, he comes back. A month later, Arians retires. Bowles takes over. Not a normal offseason for Todd Bowles, right? Like, so there's a lot of like weirdnesses. This year, they bring back Jamel Dean. They bring back Levante David. I think they did a good job this offseason of like, okay, the party's over. We're going to take on a lot of dead money, but we still have some good players. And they got rid of Byron Leftwich and brought over Canellis from the Seahawks, who resurrected Geno Smith's career. So there were components there. I think the Bucs are still going to be bad when they have injuries because they don't have depth, because you're working with $75 million in dead money on your roster. But at least right now, I think that they're frisky. I'm going to push back on Jeff on the Falcons. I was at that game. The people next to me in the stadium, every time Desmond Ridder did anything, were on tilt. Like Desmond Ridder was horrendous on Sunday. And to the point where when he would like run play action and pull the ball out of Bijan Robinson's stomach, my section would audibly yell no. Like it was so I got super like Adrian
That's
Peterson.
where they're going to run the ball 45 times.
Right. I got super Adrian Peterson, Tavares Jackson vibes out of that game. And that's being nice to Des Ridder. So I'm going to sell the Falcons on the idea that you need to at least have an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about that division, the amazing thing is that the number 1 overall pick looks like crap for Carolina. Like that's the most amazing thing. If you look at the quarterbacks in that division, Derek Carr is being Derek Carr.
Terrible,
right? I don't know if he's terrible. Then what is Justin Fields? I mean,
terrible. They're both
but they're not the same. You would
know, but not Justin Fields is we got to get that bar higher off the ground here. Like
I didn't say what's the first step in winning a championship. It begins with Derek Carr. He's playing. They've won 2 games for some reason.
The last time I saw Derek Carr play in a playoff game, he spiked the ball with 40 seconds left on the clock at the 10-yard line on 1st and goal. Derek Carr will not win a thing in New Orleans. Mark my words. Derek Carr stinks.
So rank the quarterbacks in that division.
The quarterbacks in that division? Carr's probably the best one, but that doesn't matter.
Well, then that's winning something.
Yeah.
Honestly, Baker and Carr are the same tier.
I don't know if I'd go
Bryce
that
Younger
far.
in the same tier right now.
Derek Carr's better than Baker Mayfield.
Okay. Like Derek Carr, if Derek Carr shows up last year, the Raiders are a 500 team or better. That team had a much better season than Derek Carr played. If I want to see somebody throw for 13 yards in the second half of 8 games in the season, I'll sign Derek Carr.
Okay. Enough of that. 0-2 Chargers. Go ahead, Jeff.
The QB power rankings now want to combine those discussions.
I look forward to
I've traveled the globe and seen all of Derek Carr's playoff games in person. and it's a privilege. He is a privilege.
Yeah.
If you look at the statistics, I don't want to beat this to death, but Baker Mayfield has had nowhere near the career Derek Carr has had. They're not the same quarterback. Soren's not even getting involved. Soren knows this. He's not even getting involved in it.
This is the power rankings versus the prediction thing. Carr has had some moments in the NFL. They have been fleeting. Like he came in Arrowhead and kicked the Chiefs' ass once out of like 18 tries. He's capable of being great. And
by the way, I don't know that he even kicked their ass, but he got out.
Yeah, I mean, he was great. In that game, he was great.
Yeah,
but
that's the point.
Last year they blew big leads to the Cardinals, Chiefs, Pittsburgh Steelers, and they blew a lead to a Los Angeles Rams team that had you at corner, Jeff. Like that.
Is that Derek Carr's fault?
Yes. When you throw for 12 yards in the second half of a game, it's your fault when you lose a lead. Yes.
Soren's just like checked out. Soren's just like,
no, I'm looking at numbers. I was looking up like how many 300-yard games Baker Mayfield's had. Like,
do you have to look at that?
He's had 11.
Mayfield set rookie records when he was a rookie in the NFL.
For what?
Well, that's when
Derek Carr went 0-8 or whatever the hell he was.
Rookie records are set when players are rookies.
Yeah, and Derek Carr went like 1-12 and knocked the Chiefs out of the playoffs in 2014. That was his only thing, positive thing as a rookie. Like Baker's
record Baker Mayfield set. Eric's just making things up now.
No, he did have some kind of like
Baker had the rookie passing touchdown record in 2018.
Yeah,
Herbert broke it.
His 2017 he broke Peyton Manning's rookie touchdown record. All right, you know how many 300-yard games Derek Carr's had? 34. Including 4 over 400.
But that's a low number of 400-yard games, by the way. And that
I mean,
zero for Mayfield.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Baker's played in Cleveland.
So now,
like the Raiders,
the lake's on fire. The lake is on fire in Cleveland.
The Raiders are just a ground of fertility for quarterbacks to grow.
Well, Carr's career has been twice as long too, Petro.
All right, so then the number should just be double. 11 300-yard games for Baker Mayfield.
I have to buy the Bucs now because Baker
34 for Derek Carr.
Eric's defending a guy who's played on 4 teams in the last 12 months.
I would like to point out that this podcast is ground to a halt arguing Baker Mayfield versus Derek Carr.
Whose fault is that?
Eric!
No! You brought up the Bucs and you brought up Baker Mayfield.
They're 2-0.
Yes.
I asked if they're real. A simple no would have been fine.
No one in the NFC South is real. That's the point. I wish everybody was as nice to other people as the schedule makers were to the NFC South this year.
Okay. All right.
I wish we had that kind of empathy for everybody that the NFL has for the NFC South.
Are we going to sit around and sing Kumbaya now? Is that what's coming up next?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The NFC South has a cupcake of a schedule.
Okay. How about the Chargers? Are the Bolts done, Jeff, at 0-2?
Man, close to it. They got a nice break with the Vikings coming in this week, but
one of those teams is going to be 0-3.
Well, I'm betting the Vikings being 0-3. Like the Vikings again, turning the ball over at an amazing rate. I can't run the football. I can't believe that they're going to get that win. What worries me about the Chargers is that this is the 3rd straight year where, as much as we talk about Justin Herbert, their problem's always been the defense. And Brandon Staley, for a defensive-minded coach, a smart guy, a guy who's been around on Sean McVay's staff, it's just like he has not been able to get this fixed. And there's more talent on the Chargers defense than there is on the Chiefs in terms of just Pro Bowl, All-Pro, first round, stars. They've got stars on their team. And when you're seeing, it's one thing for Tua and Tyreek to light you up in week 1 with the Dolphins, but when Ryan Tannehill is going 20 for 24 against you and throwing 70-yard passes to Treylon Burks, you've got some problems. And it can't be that hard to put a good defense on the field when you got that much talent. And so that's my concern, is that they'll probably make a run and find a way to get into the playoffs, but it's until the defense gets better, it's just I have to think Brandon Staley is worried about his job right now because if they don't make the playoffs, he's done.
Eric, you said, I think it was last week, at some point, the Chargers, Brandon Staley has to start making the Chargers look like he's actually a defensive coach, right? Like that's his side of the ball, and it's the biggest problem. Is it something, though? Listen, they have lost 2 games by a total of 5 points. The Dolphins are a good football team. The Titans are a professional team. Are we overreacting to this at this point?
But that doesn't change the point, though, that you have one of the better quarterbacks in the entire league. They're the first team in NFL history to score more than 50 points with no turnovers and lose both games to start a season. Like all of that's true, right? Like it could regress for them better. It could make it better starting this week with a team that's also a huge privilege on close games like the Vikings. But like the broader point remains, though, that like, what are you doing here, Staley? Right? You're not going for 4th downs anymore. Like it's gross. You can't stop the run to save your life. And now you can't stop the pass. And like when he was in LA, it's probably just like funny. A great schemer is just like covering up the fact that you got Aaron Donald like holding the point of attack and also rushing the passer with a plum. And it's not necessarily how genius you are as a play caller. So I mean, Staley's on the hot seat. I mean, he should be the favorite to be the first one fired. I wrote in my article, Sumersports.com, every week on Friday. I have a piece where I talk about my opinions, and like I'm just selling Brandon Staley. Like I've seen enough. Like last year, he was put on watch, didn't perform. This year, it's gotten even worse, and it's his side of the ball that is screwing them over. And it's not like Jeff talked about. It's not like they don't have talent. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. J.C. Jackson was a huge free agent signing. Derwin James is a player.
Eric Kendricks over there now.
First-round pick on Kenneth Murray. They brought in Eric Kendricks from the Vikings. Like this should Sebastian Joseph Day. Like every player on that team has a name, and they stink, and they can't stop anything.
The Bolts, I think we'll catch. I like the comment about like they'll probably win 6 out of 7 and get back into the wins. They've got the quarterback. I mean, at some point this reflects on Herbert too. Right now he's got Kellen Moore. Now I'll tell you, I got friends that are Cowboy fans that are like, yeah, have fun with 2 goes and 2 curls because that's every pass combination that Kellen Moore will call. So they weren't too sad to see him go, but it is some of it's got to be on Herbert too. Which Eric, I know you have no shortage of blame to throw at him, but Staley was better when he first got there, and now he's like gone into a shell because he got some criticism about going forward on 4th down, and it didn't work the first time he did it. Well, there was quite a commitment, huh? Really, really believing in what the guy was doing. All right, let's we go. There are a lot of different teams that we can go through. One of them is the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick. Is Belichick cooked? Is his run over, Jeff?
Run in terms of what, winning championships or just as being a good coach?
Both.
Well, they're not going to win any more championships. What they have there, the defense is good. The offense is, they've got a good enough defense to keep them in games and a bad enough offense to blow it, right? I mean, that's what we've seen. They've had a couple games now where they've had big deficits. They fought their way back into it, and then Mac Jones can't find a way to make it happen with the weapons he has, and they end up losing in some kind of underwhelming fashion. But I mean, I don't think you stop being a good coach. You basically reach a point where the things you've been doing, people catch up to them. Your ego gets to a place where you feel like you can do whatever you want, and then you end up paying a price for that. And that's pretty much the way it goes for every good head coach in this league. Andy Reid went through it in Philadelphia. He started doing crazy stuff and lost his job. Sean Payton, you're seeing what's happened to him in Denver. Mike Shanahan went through this in Washington. Mike Holmgren went through it in Seattle. It's just there's a place you reach as a coach that you set the bar so high, and Belichick's, in my mind, the best coach in NFL history, that it's just hard to – you're not going to find Tom Brady again. You're not going to find all these veteran guys that you found, Willie McGinnis and Mike Vrabel, and, you're not going to luck into a Rob Gronkowski. That's just the way it goes. I mean, he's had a great run, but yeah, do I think he's still a good coach? Yeah. Do I think that team is mediocre until he retires? Yeah.
He did call a sweet field goal block. I mean, clearly they had not altered the snap count in like 2 years, and they perfectly timed that.
He also threw a hissy fit on the sideline that everybody loved where he threw the flag in the ground. That was a terrible challenge. Like his in-game decision making is awful. The fourth downs, the 2-point conversions, all that stuff, like he's lost that. And he had an edge over the league for a long time. And now the league has caught up to him in that regard. You watch his defense play and he still has it there, right? Like that's a great Dolphins offense. He held to 24 points and they were lucky in some ways to get some of those 24 points. And so it's weird. I agree with Jeff. I think like if he goes somewhere, it's kind of like a John Gruden thing. If he goes somewhere that's like a ready-made Super Bowl roster, they're going to win the Super Bowl. But I don't think he can build a Super Bowl roster anymore because he values like he's obstinate about what he values. And even though he's innovative in some ways, you can't win the way the Patriots want to win anymore. You just simply can't. Yeah. And he's awesome on the edges. That field goal block, amazing, right? Like the way he uses Jelani Tavai, Jeff knows this, the worst linebacker in the NFL when he played for Detroit. And now he's incredibly useful for that team. Belichick does great things. It's just not the great things that are going to win you the Super Bowl. It's weird that Andy, when he was playing for the Eagles or coaching the Eagles, did great things. And back then, the pass rates and all that stuff were not going to be how you won the Super Bowl. And the NFL's evolved to optimize Andy's, play calling and stuff and coaching, and it's evolved away from Bill Belichick's.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so they're not going to win the Super Bowl. By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Why risk accidents and liability in your parking lot? Get your parking lot striped today. Get it restriped. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents, keep your parking lot safer, keep you focused on your business. Find out more at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Who can actually win the Super Bowl? I think this is an interesting, thing to create a list of, and we'll look back on it and say like, wow, look at this team that came out of nowhere, or holy cow, I thought that team could win it. How many teams in your mind can win a Super Bowl? Jeff, you got a quantity of teams. Do you got the names you want to run through?
I would say in the NFC, San Francisco, Dallas, Philly, Detroit. Those are my 4 over there. In the AFC, Buffalo, Miami. If Burrow's healthy, Bengals, Chiefs, Ravens on the cusp. I'll go with 8. I won't put the Ravens in there right now, but I'll go with those 8.
That's actually 9. San Fran, Dallas, Philly, Detroit, Buffalo, Miami, Cincinnati, Chiefs, and Baltimore.
Okay. Well, I said the Ravens are on the cusp, so I'll put them in there.
You put them in. Okay.
I'll put them in at 9.
Eric, what's your list look like?
Yeah, so it's Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, Miami, and then NFC is Philadelphia, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle, and Detroit.
Seattle. Wow.
Yeah, I mean that was a gutsy ass effort on Sunday without some key players there. If they get healthy, I think that the NFC is bad, man. Like what if Dallas, San Francisco, and Philly get injured? I mean, Philly hasn't looked good through 2 games, for example.
No. You must have missed the Rams, Seahawks season opener.
No, but like, good question. Like I think but you make a good point. Like I think that playing with key players injured during the game is a lot harder than having a week to prepare. And they prepared the hell out of that game plan against the Lions on offense.
It was a nice bounce back. I'll give you that.
Yeah. I give you that as well. All right. My list is a little bit longer, right? We're talking about can win the Super Bowl, not will win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Can win the Super Bowl. In the AFC, Buffalo, Miami, Baltimore, Cleveland, Kansas City, the Chargers.
No Bengals?
I'm sorry, Cincinnati. Yes, that's why I said it's longer. I'm sorry.
Cleveland and no Bengals?
I had Cincinnati in between Baltimore and Cleveland, and I looked up and then I looked back down and I went down to the next one. Yes, the Bengals and Jacksonville's the one I'm like, could they get in and go Joe Flacco? Yeah, but
Sure.
I think they've got too many O-line problems. I think there's too much there. I don't think they're quite ready.
Defense stinks too.
Defense isn't any good, so I've got a problem with that. Philadelphia, Dallas, San Francisco, and here into the list in the NFC.
Wow. I think that shot Eric Eager.
All right.
See what he did there?
Hey, when Soren's in Las Vegas, because he's going to that Super Bowl, and he's got to prepare for a game with Honolulu Blue, and that he'll eat his words there.
First of all, I mean, you make a strong case for the Lions, and maybe they should be there, and I'm just not going to admit to your crap. But you're not picking the Super Bowl right 2 years in a row. You know, you can be Captain Analytics all you want. There isn't a snowball's chance in hell of you doing that. So either the Chiefs are out or the Lions are out, and the Lions are much more likely to be out than the Chiefs.
Soren, the fact that I picked it correct this year has no bearing over picking it correct this year. They're independent events. Like, this is like, it's not. It's like, oh, you got a head. You at the roulette table, you got red earlier. You're not getting red this time. Like, that's what are we doing?
I love how Soren didn't even ponder. At least he pondered Jacksonville and said, "Oh, well, I'm not sure." He just didn't even mention the Lions. Just went right past.
Jacksonville picked the worst player, pick one, when the Lions got the actual good player, Aiden Hutchinson. Like, what are we doing here? Like the Jags playing a harder conference. I don't get
the Jag. I think the Lions have a harder division, right? Which is still only 6 of their games. I listen. I know the Vikings are turning the ball over, but Kirk Cousins is a real quarterback. Jordan Love is real. The Packers,
the Chicago Bears are an AFC South team.
Chicago Bears are 2-0. So the Lions will not lose to the Bears. You're confirming that.
Colorado wouldn't lose to the Bears right now.
Well, the Lions managed to suck quite a bit. You know, I mean, their beginnings have been terrible the last 2 years. So there are bad losses in there.
That's like Sunday wasn't a bad loss. It's a good Seahawks team.
According to you, not according to me or Jeff. Geno Smith is not winning a Super Bowl.
Okay, like maybe. I mean, I'll give him a little bit more than 0% chance.
You think Geno Smith could beat 4 playoff teams in a row? Like, would you agree Seattle can't be the 1 seed? So he's going to have to win 4 playoff games in a row.
I mean, Eli Manning won 4 playoff games in a row twice, including twice at Lambeau against 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, against Brady twice. Like, what are we doing here? This is the NFL. Like, I know we've been diluted by Pat thinking like that.
You're not honestly saying Geno Smith is the equal to Eli Manning, are you?
I mean, Ben McAdoo once started him over Eli. Yeah, I mean, I think Geno was awesome last year.
Are you taking Geno Smith over Eli?
No, of course I'm not. But
Baker
Eli
Mayfield, Derek Carr over
in 07, Eli was not considered a good quarterback. I watched him throw 8 pick sixes that year. Like, this is
right. And if you watched him at Ole Miss, you saw the same thing. He was a guy that could play you in or out of a game. He could be red hot and make you go. He'll throw the ball out to David Tyree and give him a chance to pin it against his helmet. And if good things are happening, then you can have a day.
You're making a case for Geno Smith. That's all you're doing right now.
He's never done that. Ever has he done that.
Until Eli did it, he did never done it either.
Eli did it all. It was his whole life. It was his high school career. It was his day. At Ole Miss, he could win a game 68-60-something in 7 overtimes. Like, he could rise up and beat the best. He could do that. And yes, he could crap in his hat. He could get hot and do that. Geno Smith has never been hot, ever.
Yeah.
He's systematically.
Yeah. And Eric, the king of playoff performances, forgot how Geno Smith played last year in the playoffs.
Yeah. And he single-handedly made DK Metcalf an afterthought as a wide receiver.
What?
You think DK Metcalf was great playing along Geno Smith?
Oh God. Okay, let's look at some facts here. DK Metcalf, the last year with Russell Wilson, 967 yards. First year with Geno Smith, 1,048. Like, he got better. Like, what are we doing here?
You're cherry picking 2 years. You want to look
Those
back?
are the only 2 years. Like that's like literally N and then N plus 1. N included the old guy. N plus 1 included Gino. What are we doing?
Geno Smith is
Jeff's pulling a me right now. He's just trying to hide.
Yeah, I'm
the
like,
Seahawks
good
are not winning
Lord.
anything. The Seahawks
Yeah.
are.
Petro, you gotta do the Gann read, and we gotta get going. This is
Uh,
we're talking about Geno Smith winning a Super Bowl,
What are
which
you
is possible
looking
and not likely.
Jeff, what are you looking for this weekend? What game's jumping out at you? What situation?
Bengals, Vikings. A lot riding on that. Excuse me, not Chargers, Vikings.
Chargers,
Yeah.
Vikings. Somebody's
Yeah.
going to be 0-3.
Yeah.
I agree. Eric,
I'm looking forward to taking a nap during the 4:00 hour because it's Cowboys, Cardinals, Chiefs, Bears,
Panthers,
and there's
Seahawks.
there's some other random game that's actually a pick 'em. There are going to be more competitive games on Monday night, both of these last 2 Mondays, than during that window.
Okay.
Actually, I'll watch the Chiefs game, obviously, but it's like this week's kind of a dud. I agree with Jeff. Chargers, Vikings. I can't wait to see which team will privilege their way to 0-3.
Broncos, Dolphins. Right, the Broncos have been in both games, but they're 0-2. Sean Payton starts to become, he's already getting it, but it will be
A lot of
definitely
trash.
in Denver if he goes to 0-3. Like, this is back against the wall against a good Dolphin team. And oh, by the way, the Dolphins now have some pressure, right? Okay, you can't be, jerking around in the sandbox with the Broncos. You're supposed to win now. You're being talked about as a Super Bowl contender. Okay, wear the heavy crown and kick some ass. That's what should happen. I think if we get a game that could go either way, I don't know what we learn, but I think it'll be amazing if the Broncos are 0-3. You heard it. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, the best when it comes to handling parking lot problems. Been solving them since 1994. Full service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Nationally recognized. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, sumersports.com. My name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Too Deep NFL Podcast.